Well, welcome. We have a 60-minute yin practice together, and I'm going to take you through a practice that really opens up the whole front fascial line of the body. So the fascia is this connective tissue in the body that literally connects every single cell, every muscle fiber, every nerve fiber. It wraps around our bones, it wraps around groups of muscles. And so we're traveling the whole way up the front line of the body into really opening, expanding this space of expansion. I think it's as we start to really come out into this beautiful weather in spring and summer, it's really nice to feel this sense of aliveness and vitality. And so we're just going to tap into this front fascial line of the body to achieve that. But before we begin, we're just going to take a seat. So just closing down your eyes, find a comfortable space, get your sit bones elevated, either on a block or bolster, and have the eyes softly closed. And as you just come into that space of stillness, perhaps you've had a busy start to your day. Just allow yourself to find comfort in your seat. So making sure there's no pain or discomfort, particularly in your lower back, your hips, your knees and ankles. And then just give yourself a really deep, full breath in and out. And as you do that again, I want you to really feel this expansion through the front body. So belly ballooning, front ribs expanding out, chest lifting. And allow all of that to soften as you come back down on the exhale. And we'll do that again. Deep, full breath in, belly balloons, ribs expand, chest expands and lifts. Really filling yourself up. And then exhale, allowing everything to soften back to a neutral position. And just allow the mind to start to focus on the breath. But as you do that, I want you to just pay particular attention to your spine. So let's start down at the base of the spine, the sit bones connected to the earth, just making sure that the bottom is symmetrical, making sure that you're not offset in the pelvis one side or the other. And so you might need to change the position of your legs a little bit to ensure that the pelvis is really stable. And I want you to imagine you're trying to lift your torso up and out of your pelvis. You're lifting up the waistline and really lengthening the side body from that hip crease where the legs are crossed up towards the lower rib cage, trying to make that as long as possible. And as you do that, you'll notice a gentle engagement naturally has to happen, particularly through the lower abdomen. Maybe even you feel a lift at the pelvic floor. So that we're creating this intention and integrity, which really supports particularly the lower spine. And then as you continue to take awareness up the body, feel the upper part of the body, the torso and the thoracic spine really start to lengthen out. So pull the shoulders back like you're trying to open up through the front of the shoulders. Really engage the shoulders and the back line of the body, but then soften them so that they're not creeping up around the ears. And then continuing to travel awareness up through the back of the neck. Try to just imagine you're trying to touch the back of your skull onto a wall, and you're trying to press the back of the neck onto a wall as well. And you'll find as you do that, the chin naturally drops down towards the chest. And then all the way up to the crown of the head. Crown of the head is lifting up towards the ceiling. I don't know about you, but I think I've just grown about 2 inches just by having that little intentional awareness practice of really setting the tone for where I want my spine to be. And I just notice if the body is holding and contracting and feeling a little bit tense as you've tried to lift and expand and elongate the spine. And as you take your next breath, just find a little bit more ease and softness. We're really focusing here on the practice today through the front line of the body. So as you breathe in and out, just feeling the soft movement of the belly, the ribs, the chest as you breathe in and out. Keeping the chest really proud, collarbones smiling. Back body is powerful, it's switched on, it's active. Now really allowing the mind to be mindful of breath. Watching the breath come and go. Breathing in and breathing out. Before we begin our practice where we're going to really open up and lengthen out through the whole front line of the body, we're first going to completely close the body off. So we're going to move into a seated caterpillar pose to begin with, just by stretching your legs out directly in front of you. It's okay to have some space between the feet, so my feet are sort of hip distance apart, they're not completely stuck together. And just wiggle your bottom so that the fleshy part of your bottom is out of the way. So you can really feel your sit bones connected to the floor. And then you can use supports, props, block, bolster if you wish. And just simply collapse the heart forward to come into a forward fold. So you had all of this intention and integrity in the spine in your seated posture, and now we're completely letting that go and really encouraging and allowing the spine to dome and drawing the chin to the chest. It might be enough for you to be pretty upright, with the spine relatively straight, and just drop the chin to chest without really folding forward. So just find a space that feels really comfortable for you as we just really lengthen out the back body and compress and contract the front body before we then spend the rest of the practice really opening it back up again. So here in a forward fold, we're in a really beautiful space of introspection. It's like a space of quietening down the mind. It really anchors the energy body into a grounded space. So just allow the mind to focus on the breath in the belly. If you've got a bolster on your lap, you might feel your belly compressing against the bolster as you breathe in. And you might naturally find the breath begins to lengthen on the exhale. So just allowing the breath to do whatever it's naturally doing with no change or control. And we'll bring in a very simple pranayama as we come into the poses that open up the front body. You might also find as you really soften and surrender into the shape that you start to inch forward and deepen into the stretch a little more. If that's happening, just allow the body to fall into it. And just taking 3 more breaths here. And to come out of your caterpillar pose, just slowly bring the chest up. Take a straight spine in a seated pose to begin with, so just keeping your legs stretched out. Bring your head, neck, shoulders stacked over the hips. And just take a moment and allow the energy body just to re-center and rebalance after being in a deep forward fold. And then we're going to come and lay on our back, just as a way to allow the whole physical and energetic body just to recalibrate into a neutral position. If you need to take a bolster underneath your knees, please go ahead and do that. Or if you need to take feet flat on the floor and keep the hips and knees bent just to protect the lower back. I'm taking 5 big breaths here. And then we'll slowly come back up onto our hands and knees. So just taking your time to roll over to your side. And gently pressing yourself up. And coming over onto our hands and knees. And we're going to come into a stretch through the top of the feet and the shins. If you have any real troubles with your knees and sitting on your knees is a real issue, you can alleviate some of that pressure by either taking something underneath your bottom, so providing some elevation, or perhaps you can take like a straddle pose, so in between your legs and sitting back. And then of course you can really prop yourself up there by taking your sit bones elevated higher. If you're really comfortable sitting on your knees, so we're just stretching through the whole front line of the fascia here at the front of the foot, from the toes and up to the shin. If you're comfortable to deepen that, you can take something underneath your knees so that there is a slight elevation from the top of your toes and through the ankle joint all the way up to the knees. Now it's quite deep and strong into the ankles here. If you're super open and quite mobile through your joints, you might even be able to lean back, and then you'll start to also just provide a very subtle stretch through the quadriceps as well. So the higher you lift your knees, the deeper the stretch will be across the front of the ankles. Please just work within your range. We're not going to be here for too long. So when you find a space that feels comfortable for you, just close down the eyes. Try and soften the whole body, especially if you're leaning back and you're supporting yourself. Just let go of any tension that you might be holding through your face or your jaw, your shoulders. Give yourself a nice breath in and out. And then just cultivating mindfulness of breath, just bringing awareness back to breath. And as we're working through the whole front line of the body, which ultimately opens up the whole front line of the body into a space of expansion and gentle extension through the spine, we're going to start integrating a pranayama where we gently lengthen the in-breath as a way to boost vitality, to lift our energy levels, to create this sense of energetic expansion. If you are highly anxious or experience anxiety, or are currently experiencing a lot of overwhelm or mental distraction, feeling unsettled, inability to sleep well, etc., then please just stay with an equal, gentle breath. But if you're feeling like you need a little bit of a boost, a little bit of an energetic lift, we're going to work with a 6 count in breath and a 4 count out breath. And that count can be within your own timing and rhythm. For me, it would be an in-breath for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and an out-breath for 4, 3, 2, 1. It's generally the timing of my breathing, or my counting, I should say. So just start to find a rhythm that feels good for you, and then the invitation is to continue to concentrate on that lengthened breath or the equal breath if you're a little bit feeling a little bit mentally fatigued or overwhelmed or distracted. And then continue to allow the mind to just focus and follow that breath in and out. Feeling the belly expand and the chest expand all the way into the fullness of the breath, and all of it to soften and settle as you breathe out. And we're just here for 5 more breaths in this position. If it's becoming too strong or the stretch is sort of too much, please just soften, come forward or come out if you need to. And when you have finished those 5 breaths, you'll slowly come forward, bring your hands onto the floor, lift your bottom up off your feet. Just come onto your hands and knees and just really gently start to flex the ankles by taking the toe tips onto the floor. You might even be able to gently start to bring your hips back over your heels with your toes tucked, so that now you're really flexing through the front of the foot and the ankle. And then lifting up the feet and just taking a few very gentle circular motions one way and then the other on both feet. And then just to rebound out of that deep stretch to the front of the feet, we're just going to lay on our tummy. So if you have a bolster, take your hips over the bolster. If you don't, just come and lay flat on your tummy. Bring your forehead down onto the back of your hands. So if you have a bolster, you have the whole pelvic space and your hip flexors resting over the bolster. So you've got this flexion through your hips. And then give yourself 5 big breaths here. End of those 5 breaths, we're going to come back onto our hands and knees. And we're going to take a lunge. Let's bring the right foot forward first. Keeping the left knee on the floor. And then I'm going to take blocks to frame the front foot so that my hands can rest. I want you to be super mindful of trying to pull the collarbones through the shoulders so that there is an openness through the front of the body rather than this effort of trying to really reach the floor, which really contracts the front body. So even here in the lunge, the intention is really to open up through the left hip and the left quadricep, but I want that extension to continue to roll all the way up to the collarbones. And so it might be that you need to take your hands onto your knee, your front knee, to keep the shoulders pulled back and down. Or if you have enough range of motion and flexion through that front hip, you might be able to bring your hands to a block. So twofold, really pull that right hip back, press the left hip forward. And you should feel a nice stretch through the top of the hip around the front of the pelvis. But then also continuing that extension through the front of the belly, up through the chest, all the way up to the collarbones. Keeping the strength in the back body, pulling shoulder blades back. Resting shoulders down the back of the body, but not kicking the head up. We're keeping the chin gently drawn down. And if you're working with that 6 count in breath, 4 count out breath, continue to integrate that. And I want you to take the focus of the breath from down at the front of that left hip as you breathe in, traveling the breath all the way up to the collarbones. And then as you breathe out, just softening into the space. So as the in-breath comes in, take awareness to that left hip, draw awareness all the way up the front body as a way to continue to open up and expand. And then exhale, soften. An option here for an extension to really take the stretch down into the left quadricep all the way down to the knee. Keeping your left hand just on the inside of the right foot. You're going to take a gentle twist so the right hand will come up to the sky to begin with. And then you can draw the left heel towards the bottom and reach back and take a hold of the left heel or ankle. And as you draw that heel towards your bottom, you'll feel a really juicy stretch into the quadricep. And you're just here for 3 breaths, just to finalize. If it's too deep, you can let it go and stay exactly where you are. Keeping an opening through that whole front line of the body. And then whenever you're ready to release, you're going to bring the right foot back and just sit back on your heels or sit back with your bottom rested on a block or bolster. Just closing down the eyes, shoulders stacked over hips, just to rest in a seated position, to take all of the stretch out of the whole pelvis and the front of the legs, just for a couple of breaths. And then we'll move back into the lunge and we'll take it to the opposite side. So this time the left leg will step through, setting yourself up with blocks or not, drawing the left hip back, driving the right hip forward, keeping the pelvis neutral, stretching deeply into the front of the right hip, and then continuing that expansion and that stretch all the way through the front body, all the way up to the collarbones, but keeping the chin at least in a neutral position and definitely not looking up. Shoulders are squeezing at the back of the body and resting down the back line of the body. And then just continuing to focus on the breath, on that expansive breath. Inhale for 6 and out, exhale for 4. And then if you wish to take the extension on this side, the right hand will come to the inside of the left foot. You'll take a gentle twist, left hand up to the sky to begin with, and then reaching back to take hold of that right ankle and draw the ankle and heel towards the bottom. A nice big stretch into the quadricep, as well as through the whole front line of the chest, particularly into that left arm and shoulder. 3 big breaths here. And you'll slowly release. And we'll come and lay flat on our back. Taking legs stretched out in front of you if you can, otherwise bolster underneath or feet flat on the floor. For 5 breaths, we're going to create a little cyclical intention of energy sweeping up the front of the body and down the back of the body. So as you're laying on your back, bring your awareness to your toes, and as you breathe in, travel your awareness with the breath the whole way up the front of the body. You'll get to the crown of the head at the top of the in-breath. And then as you breathe out, sweep the awareness over the crown of the head and all the way back down the back of the body, all the way to the heels and under the soles of the feet to come back to the toe tips, ready for the next inhale. So you're just wrapping yourself in this ball of energy that sweeps up the front and down the back, traveling the breath 5 times. A way to continue to move with this upward force of energy at the front line of the body and this downward force of energy at the back line of the body, to stay open and expansive and elevated and enlivened, as well as grounded and stable. And then from here, we're going to take our feet flat on the floor. You're going to bring a bolster or block underneath your hips. So having your bottom and your sacrum supported, extend the legs out straight. And then taking the arms overhead, perhaps taking opposite elbows, or if you can interlock your fingers and reach up. Just to create this long line through the whole body, creating as much space and elongation as possible, while just gently nourishing and opening through the front of the pelvis there. We just did a really big stretch with the lunge. This is just a softer variation, but also allows this opening through the whole front line of the body because there is no flexion through the joints here. And we're just here in this little supported open bridge pose just for 10 breaths. Feel the whole front line of the body expanding as you breathe in, and the softness, the resting on the breath out. At the end of those 10 breaths, just gently bend the hips and knees, place the feet flat on the floor. Bring your arms back down, resting hands on belly. Just take a couple of resting breaths here in a more supported, more restful experience of the supported bridge. And then press into the floor, squeeze your bottom, lift your hips up. Move the bolster or block out of the way. Drop the hips back to the floor, take a deep breath in and out. Then rolling over to your side, come up to a seat. We're going to come into a supported heart opener. I'm going to show you a couple of options here. So you can simply take a really gentle heart opener, laying over the bolster, having the whole spine supported, legs stretched out. You could also take soles of feet together and open up through the hips if you wish. Or if you're wanting to take a really super juicy deep stretch here, another option for you is to take some support underneath the head end of your bolster. I'm just going to take one block. This relies on a lot of knee and ankle range of motion, where you can come into a straddle, having your knees together and the heels outside of the hips, so your bottom will come down to the floor. If it doesn't reach, you can sit on the edge of your bolster, or you can also take another block under your bottom and then come to lay over the bolster. Now, what will happen if the legs are super tight here is the knees will want to fly apart and lift up from the floor. If that's happening, I would say this is a little bit too deep. You can either do one leg at a time, or you can just come out of it and go back into a more restful heart opener. So taking this option allows for this whole front line of the body to be completely stretched and open through this fascial line, from the toes all the way down the shins to the knees, all the way through the quadriceps, through the front belly, all the way up to the chest. I would love for you to have your chin tucked in so that you're not losing the space through the throat. We'll come into something that stretches and opens through that in a moment. So taking whatever heart opener feels good for you. You can have as much effort or as much ease here as you like. Perhaps you take one variation for 10 or so breaths and then you change and adjust and swap. Wherever you are, take your arms out to the sides, either beside the body or stretch open wide like I am. Take your palms facing up, which allows the shoulders to externally rotate and start to really open up this beautiful space through the front line of the chest, really stretching out the pectoral muscles from the sternum to the shoulders. And then breathing deeply, finding that full breath in, all the way up the whole front line of the body. I quite like here to use this wave-like intention, bringing awareness to the pubic bone, drawing energy and awareness all the way up to my throat as I breathe in. And then as I breathe out, I imagine the breath just sweeping across my shoulders down to my fingertips. So breathing in from pubic bone, sweeping awareness all the way up front line of body, opening up through this beautiful space of expansion. And exhaling, allowing the breath to sweep over the shoulders, down the arms, all the way into your fingertips. Just taking 3 more breaths here. If you have taken that really full pose, resting on your knees in that straddle position, to come out of it, press your forearms and hands into the floor, engage your belly, pull your chin to the chest, push yourself up, and then roll your legs out from side to side, stretch them out. If you are just laying over the bolster easefully, just roll over to your side and come up to a seat just for a moment. We're going to come back over the bolster, but we're just going to take a slightly different position. So if you have some blocks, we're going to take them at the base of the mat towards one end. You're going to just come and have your whole spine resting on the bolster this time so that the head falls down to the floor. If your bolster is really thick and it's too far for your head, like my bolster is quite squishy and quite flat, so it's okay for me. I also have an incredibly long neck, so it's easy for me to take my head down. My shoulders are completely supported, so the top of my shoulders are in line with the top of my mat. The top of my bottoms cheeks are right down at the base of my bolster as well. And then I'm taking my legs stretched out so that my ankles rest on the blocks and my feet hang off. So that now we are keeping the spine relatively neutral, but you're really opening up more so through the chest here and then also through the throat. So it's a really kind of soft variation of fish pose, I guess we could say, where the target and intention of opening up through this front line of the body is really from the nipple line through the upper part of the chest into the collarbones and through the throat. And you're reaching your head back, so the crown of the head is resting on the floor and your gaze is at least looking up, if not slightly overhead. If you experience vertigo or feel uncomfortable with your head resting back, please just take something underneath the back of the head, which will keep the gaze looking straight ahead, if not slightly forwards, and the chin a little bit tucked in. You'll still be getting all of this beautiful opening through the front of the chest anyway. Watching the breath, continuing to sense and experience that lengthened in-breath, matching the breath with the intention of the physical changes we're inviting into the body through this front body expansion and opening. Or just maintaining that equal breath if you need to, if that's best for you in your practice now. And just taking 3 more breaths here. To come out of this one, release your feet first, place your feet flat on the floor, and then just simply roll off to the side. Move the bolster and blocks out of the way. Come to lay flat on your back. You can either take bolster under your knees if you need to, or just lay out flat. Taking a nice big full breath in when you get there. Letting all the breath go. And just checking in with the body to see if there's any little additional stretches or niggles or movements you need to make before you find rest and peace in Shavasana. Having your hands and arms rested wherever you feel comfortable. And just allowing the breath to come back to a neutral rhythm, breathing in and out without any control or effort. As the next breath arrives, just allow it to be a little bit fuller, a little bit more intention and awareness to breath. Filling yourself up. And as you breathe out, open the mouth, allow the breath to escape through a little sigh. And as the next breath arrives, start to bring gentle movement into the body, perhaps rubbing your fingers or your hands or wiggling your toes. And make your way over to your side whenever you feel ready. And then rising up into a seat. Hopefully as you arrive, you feel this sense of uplifted, energetic spaciousness, ease in opening up through the chest, and ease in drawing the shoulders back, having integrity in the length of your spine, length through the whole area of the base, middle, and top of the body. As you breathe in fully, and breathe out. Bringing hands to heart center, bowing head to heart and to one another. Namaste.